I'm Johanna Burton. I'm an art historian and critic. I'm currently the director of the graduate program at the Center for Curatorial Studies at Bard College. At the moment, my attention has sort of landed on 299, which is one of the fashion images from 1994 commissioned by Comme des Garçons. There's a real screw you, a kind of frontal address in that image that I really like. Many of Sherman's images have been described as sort of victim-y or passive, and in this image she's definitely got an attitude of defiance, a kind of female version of aggressivity, something that's pretty much in your face. What does it look like in 1994 when there's a kind of recourse to the idea of the girl and kind of grunge culture and the sorts of things that are going on in popular culture, to import part of that into high culture, but leave the seams sort of visible? The hair is slipping off in a way that's not interesting, or at least not aesthetically pleasing. There are dark circles under the eyes that don't look like heroin chic. They just look like, bad hygiene. I also like the way that gesture is worked into that image quite a lot. The way that she uses her body, it becomes sort of liquefied. It almost is poured into the dress. Some of the details in the photograph that are, in a funny way, very, very frontal, but also veiled. The clothes themselves are sort of semi-transparent. There are tattoos that begin just at the sort of Adam's apple of the figure and wind down that appear to be a scorpion or a snake. The kind of tattoo that you see on the one hand, a Harley Davidson, rider who's strapped to the back of a bike, or on the other hand, a woman in a band, and also draws attention to the crotch, which is fully frontal but covered with some kind of medical bandage or sanitary pad, which shows through the dress in a way that one would expect not to see. And in fact, you wouldn't expect the wearer of a dress like that to have anything on at all except a very beautifully manicured Brazilian with a tiny what do you call it, thong? And then the very, very strange and almost more scary gesture of the finger to the head, which is obviously meant to mimic a gun. It's cynical, it's sort of mean, but because there isn't actually a prop, it feels even scarier. It feels psychological, I think. There's also, of course, a number of piercings, both in the nose and in the navel, but they also look very much like props. You can tell that they're sort of stuck on. She holds a lit cigarette that you can tell is a prop cigarette. She wants to highlight that these are not real. It does seem as though she's calling attention to the way in which the kind of accoutrements of alternative culture can be called together or culled together. The Comme des Garçons images, which are meant to address and sort of sell to higher level clients, also I think mess with the expectation by bringing in kind of a vernacular of the lower class. But it's a vernacular that's also very slippery because, as we know, high and low feeds off of each other. So there's a way in which kind of the dirty and the downtrodden always gets pulled up and utilized in high culture. The avant-garde sort of status of images like 299 is really an interesting one, and I think we're seeing a lot of discussions around co-optation of avant-garde strategies by artists now. It's hard to read that image and understand how it could be both delivering what the company was asking for and also challenging assumptions. Fashion imagery, I think, has now fully sort of immersed itself in images of kind of alternative culture. There's a kind of internalization that you're wearing a brand that is edgy or something like that. In thinking about a single image as both holding on to an entire scenario, maybe we could call it instead of narrative, that it displaces the need for a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there's a way in which, almost like classical painting, you're seeing the pregnant moment.